Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the California Nevada Chat this Friday, the 13th of February. Thanks for joining us. My name is Nikki Gatch. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the Southern California PGA. On behalf of our President, Allison Kurt, as well as our colleagues from the Northern California section, President Nick Bailey and Executive Director Caitlin Doyle, we welcome you. Hope your week has gone great so far. I know we dodged a little bit of rain in both Northern and Southern Cal. We've got the AT&T Pebble Beach event happening this weekend. Great weather yesterday. I think they're up for some good weather today before maybe some not so good weather comes this weekend. So hopefully you had a chance to take a look at that on the TV or our friends up north go out to the event. We once again have some great guests for you lined up today. In addition to our regular legislative update from Craig Kessler, the Executive Director of California Alliance for Golf, we're joined today by two leaders of two of our allied associations, Lynn Dumas, who's president of CAG, the California Alliance for Golf, and Jennifer Morton, who is CEO of the AGM, the Association of Golf Merchandisers. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Caitlin Doyle, Executive Director of the Northern California PGA, for a quick welcome and introduction of our first guest.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nikki. And it's great to be with you all this morning. Happy Friday. Hope you're all doing well. I know it's a pretty busy season right now with all the shows going on. And if you went out to the PGA show or our NorCal Rep show this week, hopefully you're getting a lot of business done and it's been successful for you. So, which kind of leads me to my introduction of our first guest. So, Jennifer Morton, thanks for being here this morning with us. I'm going to read just a quick bio on Jennifer and then she'll take over from there. But Jennifer is a golf industry leader with more than 30 years of experience and a lifelong passion for retail excellence. She has served as the CEO of the Association of Golf Merchandisers since 2022, guiding the organization's mission to educate, connect, and inspire golf retail professionals worldwide. Prior to the AGM, Morton worked at the Hagen Oaks Golf Complex in Sacramento, California, as a buyer, merchandiser, e-commerce specialist, retail consultant, international speaker, and marketer. She is an AGM certified retail manager and has been an AGM member for more than 20 years. Welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for being with us. I appreciate your time this morning and looking forward to seeing what we talk about. So the floor is yours.
Oh, well, thank you so very much for inviting me to be here. I have a little slide deck that I'm going to share. Can everyone see that okay?
Yeah, we can see it.
Fantastic. Well, first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I know some of you are very familiar with the AGM, and others may be hearing about us for the first time. So my goal today is very simple. I'm not here to give you a sales pitch, but I'm here to show you how we can support the work that you are already doing in a very practical, in the trenches way. Let me see if I can get my slides to progress. Great. So retail in the golf shop isn't just a nice to have amenity anymore. It's a major revenue driver for your facility. Most PGA professionals are managing far more than just golf operations. You're essentially running a specialized golf retail boutique inside of a much larger golf operation. You're managing inventory turns, margins, and staff training. All of that's a very specialized skill set. The AGM exists because that specific part of your job, the part that keeps you up at night counting hangers, deserves focused education and support. We are a nonprofit international association focused exclusively on golf retail. We serve nearly 1,000 professionals ranging from high-end private clubs and resorts to public daily fee facilities. One thing to be clear on, we're not a buying group and we're not a sales organization. We are 100% education and relationship driven. Everything we do is centered on one question: how do we make your golf shop perform better? Everything the AGM does comes back to these three pillars. Educate always. We are here to provide practical, use it on Monday retail education, enhance relationships, connecting you with peers and vendor partners who can actually help you and your business grow, and elevating retail, setting the standards for what a modern, successful shop looks like. If a project doesn't serve one of these three pillars, we don't focus on it and we don't do it. So how does this show up in real life? This isn't just theory or high-level philosophy. We show up through very tangible programs that are designed to save you time. We have our annual retail conference in January, where we all get together, but we also provide webinars throughout the year, so you don't have to leave your shop to keep learning. We do weekly webinars. We have our merchandise manual, which is essentially a cheat sheet for retail best practices, and our certified retail manager program, which is a designation for those who want to master the craft of retail. In 2026, we're also putting a much heavier focus on student and intern engagement. We're offering free membership for students effective in 2026, and we have a special rate for interns at facilities as well. We really believe that retail leadership should start early so that when these interns become your assistants in the golf shop, that they already understand how to contribute to your bottom line. Our Platinum Awards. Our Platinum Awards recognize the top 100 golf shops internationally, but I want to be clear, this isn't just a beauty pageant for high revenue clubs. What makes these awards meaningful is that they really focus on how success is achieved, not just the final number on the P&L. We look at creative displays, inventory management, and customer expectation and experience. The goal isn't just to hand out trophies, it's about how we can share best practices. When one shop in our community succeeds, and finds a way to elevate their business, we really want to share those successes with everyone. So that's kind of how we use our Platinum Awards. When we look at what the most successful shops in the country are doing, the same patterns start emerging. They aren't just buying product, they are really intentional about storytelling. They plan their inventory strategically because they know turns matter more than just having a full shop. They also invest really heavily in staff training. So this isn't about teaching your team to push product or be high pressure on the sales floor. It's really about empowering them to understand the product and the consumer so that they can serve them with confidence. Retail success isn't accident, it's strategy, and that's really where we come in and try to help. As I look ahead to 2026 and beyond, we have some big goals ahead of us. We are modernizing our merchandise manual. We are creating that so it's an online guide where you can go in. We've used AI tools to help with some video on that. We have tons of downloads and really great metrics and things that you can download and use now. We've launched a new AGM Merchandiser of the Year award in 2026. We're also increasing our regional gatherings, so you don't always have to travel across the country to find your community. I know that our regional director, Kelsey Joe, is from Monterey Peninsula, is working on doing something regionally in the area this year as well. But most importantly, our commitment is to make retail simpler for you, not more complicated. You have enough on your plate. We're here to give you shortcuts to success. We have multiple ways that you can engage with the AGM. Some can choose to join us as members. Some attend our annual retail conference every January. Some participate in education programs. We offer PGA the sections the opportunity to attend one of our monthly webinars for free every month. You're more than welcome to take advantage of that. Some apply for recognition with our awards. And many others just encourage their assistants, students, interns, and shop staff to get involved early and to join the AGM. So we want engagement to feel accessible at all levels and not overwhelming. We see the AGM as a direct complement to what your section already provides. We aren't here to duplicate what the PGA does. We're here to support PGA professionals and your staff in a highly specialized, connected way. Think of us as your retail department. Our shared commitment is to your success and the success of the next generation of leaders coming through your shops. When we collaborate, we provide a 360-degree support system for your entire career development. So if you take nothing else away today, remember these three things. The AGM is by retailers for retailers. We've been in your shoes. Our focus is practical. We don't do fluff. We do usable education, and community matters. Retail can feel like you're on an island sometimes. The AGM exists so that you don't have to do it alone. And I have up here my contact information. I just want to thank you again for your time. I'm always happy to connect, answer questions, or explore ways the AGM and your PGA section can collaborate more intentionally. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Very helpful and informative, and appreciate you being here. I do have a couple questions, and we may have a couple questions for you from the group too. But obviously, right now, with all the sections across the country, there's a lot of new associates coming into the business that are starting getting their PGA Class A. I one of the first jobs I had in golf was also a retail buyer, and I really enjoyed it. But looking back now, like, what would you give advice to a new associate that you wish you knew back then? Like, what point of advice would you give them to kind of get on their way to start to, become a great merchandiser?
I would say being open to learning. Really, everything you can do to be around someone who's willing to educate you, teach you, never, always be open to that. Be really open. I know even now to this day, every time I go to any retail establishment, I'm always looking to see how they've merchandised, what they're doing, what brands they're carrying. The other thing I would always just recommend is always be open to experimenting and pushing the envelope. I think so many people are afraid to make a mistake or do something that maybe not isn't 100% perfect. And really, the only way you're going to learn, the only way you're going to grow, is to really be open to trying new things.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. Yeah, I know. I remember one of my bosses up in Oregon. He was always like, just try different stuff and do stuff that's not, even golf related, right? Like the displays and bringing in a wine barrel or bringing in whatever it may be, a basketball or whatever it may be to kind of offset basically what you're doing in the shop. And I know that's really important for a lot of people. Can you talk a little bit about that retail conference for people that haven't been there? What could they expect if they went to that in Orlando? What's the breakout sessions? What does the content involve?
Yeah, absolutely. Our the AGM Retail Conference continues to grow each and every year. The thing we really try to focus on that's really important to me is always to keeping it fun and educational. The feedback we get every year is that it really is not like any other conference that people are going to. We have three sections that we really focus on, not only at the conference, but with a lot of our webinars that we do every month. And those are on merchandising, marketing, and management. We feel like those are the three core pieces of this. And so we have three different learning tracks that people can go into any of them, and then all of them if they want. And then finally, that day ends with our product preview reception from 5 to 7 p.m., where we have about 115 vendors. And it's a great cocktail hour that's great for community involvement too.
Fun. That sounds great. Hopefully many of these people can take advantage of that next year. That sounds like a great time.
Absolutely. Everyone's invited.
I'll jump in with a follow-up question, Jennifer, more definitely related, but you come from a golf royalty family in the Morton family, especially in the merchandising world. At Hagen Oaks, I know obviously a lot of NorCal folks have visited Hagen Oaks. I hope some of our SoCal folks have. I've had the opportunity to be up there for a few things. over the years, and it's just so impressive, right? You think about a golf facility, and that's what it should look like, not only from a golf standpoint, accessibility, but the merchandising aspect of it. Can you talk about, maybe some unique things that you all are looking to do this year or have done in the shop, just to give some insight and maybe some tips to some of our listeners today?
Absolutely. I think one of the key things that Hagen Oaks does is they do vendor scorecards, which um, one, I think it's really hard to tell a vendor no, or when you have a vendor that maybe not performing as well as they've done in the past, to have those conversations because our reps tend to be friends, friends first,
Mhm.
and so it can be a muddy line. But if you're really looking at a vendor and can see what your gross profit margins are, what your turns are, all of that stuff. It makes those conversations easier. And it also frequently helps that vendor want to be more successful in your shop, right? They become very competitive in wanting to increase their margins, increase stuff to help you be more successful, to help them be more successful. The other thing Hagen Oaks is doing, and they just shared it with me, so if I don't have it totally on, but I thought it was a genius idea. They are looking at their vendors in a few different ways. They have basically like their core line of vendors. They have uh, um, kind of like their tried and true vendors. They have their core vendors, meaning, the ones that they have are day in, day out. In order to experiment with new vendors this year, they're doing things called tastemakers, where every month they're bringing in one or two new vendors just in small groups to try. It's a really nice opportunity to trial something brand new to see if it has an opportunity to grow in the shop or maybe come down. And then the final thing that they offer is, and I'm not going to remember their words, but it's sort of like seasonal accessories, things that you might bring in just once or twice a year, Father's Day, Christmas, as an additional opportunity to try new things, which I thought was really fantastic as a way really to look at the different vendors that they have in their shop to see what is working, what maybe someone who was high in a previous year needs to come down, someone who was maybe a little bit lower has that opportunity to get higher in the shop.
Great ideas. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for, addressing the, a lot of times we're friends with reps, and it's hard to say no, or hard to tell them that it's not working, or
Yeah.
getting phone calls from reps, and that the line just isn't the right fit. And so sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of our pros just ignore it, right? They ignore the phone call, they ignore the email, and that's not right either. So thank you for sharing some creative ideas to where you can sort of give them a platform. Let's try it and see how it goes, and maybe it's a home run, and maybe it's not, but at least we've done our part, to give a product a chance. So thank you for answering that.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, Jennifer, I don't think any other questions came through the chat box, but of course, if there's anything that pops in, we'll certainly follow up with you. But really appreciate your time this morning, and of course, all that you do for our golf professionals in both NorCal, SoCal, and across America, really. But obviously, here in NorCal, we're grateful to have you close by and the Morton family, and appreciate all you do for our section. So thanks for being with us this morning. You're welcome to stay if you can. Otherwise, you can absolutely hop off if you need to. But take care, and thanks again, Jennifer.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, we'll move to our next guest. He's a good friend of mine. I know for all of you as well. Very well respected golf professional, Lynn Dumas. Lynn, obviously PGA professional, certified club manager with the CMAA, has held many positions within the Northern California section, served as executive director, has past president. And now, as he's entered retirement and has a little bit more time on his hands, we're keeping him very busy as he serves as president of the California Alliance for Golf. So, Lynn, welcome. Thank you for joining us today and reconnecting. And I forgot the most important thing. former co-hosts of mine with the California Nevada chat. So how could I forget that off your resume? But great to see you and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Caitlin, for the invitation. It's really great to be here. As a matter of fact, Nikki, on your last comment, just thinking about this, it occurred to me that 6 years ago we didn't know, we couldn't know, we were 30 days away from the pandemic, and the pandemic was the genesis of the California Nevada chats. Right. And so I thank Tom. I know Tom is on time. So thank you and Caitlin for keeping this going. Incredible, right? The beginning was nuts. It was absolutely crazy. Remember, twice a week and so on and so forth. So many thanks to all the people that came on to talk to us about things nobody knew. Unemployment issues, employment issues, health issues. We had people from the CDC. We had people from our local health folks. And Tom, thank you for getting the chats launched as well 6 years ago. So this is the end and the start in 30 days. I think you mentioned the next chat is March 13th, plus or minus. That's the start of the 7th year. Holy mackerel. I would say that the ratings are higher than most of the news shows that are on these days. So we look for your contracts to all be renewed. But again, thanks for the great work here. And the opportunity to talk about CAG with Craig, and Craig has been part of this since the beginning as well, right? On a weekly basis, informing us, and so that rolls into CAG, which has been around for quite a bit. And there was an article that Craig wrote for California Golf and Travel in a recent issue that was entitled "The Most Impactful Golf Organization You've Never Heard of," right? And we've been working behind the scenes with so many in terms of what, right? Well, as our statement says, who are we, right? We're defined as a consortium of associations, community groups, and businesses organized to act as the unified voice of golf and protecting and promoting the game at local, regional, state, and federal levels, right? So what does that mean? We're kind of behind the scenes monitoring what's coming out of any city. There are certain, hubs, if you will, where legislation comes out that are not necessarily friendly to golf. We're monitoring what's happening in Sacramento with Craig as our executive director, which is part of CAG's evolution of the past few years and continued evolution. As a matter of fact, we had a board meeting earlier this morning to continue on the changes in growth. And Craig becoming the executive director is one of those things. Nicole Quinones, who is our legislative contact in Sacramento. And of course, Kevin Fitzgerald, well known to many here, has moved into the director's role of public affairs for the Southern California Golf Association. So there's as Jennifer mentions, with the AGM, there's education. There's reminding many times our legislators and committee people and locals about the positive environmental impact of that golf courses have, as some see it as just, I'll use the word underutilized to give it a little dignity, underutilized real estate, right? Water conservation is always an issue in the state of California. And, we deal with the realities of it. How long have we all been saying that the golf courses in California use less than 1% of the potable water? And so even if they were all to shut down, it wouldn't really blip on anybody's radar. But again, the perception is not that. Right? The perception is we're just spraying it everywhere, and so far from the truth. The game itself, we call it the greatest game, right? We're biased, and rightfully so, to be honest. The game itself stresses all our constituents, seniors, youth, and of course the great PGA Hope program that our veterans are taking part of and growing here in the state of California. And recent issues have been about protecting, the accessibility and affordability for golf courses, at all levels, particularly at the municipal level and public level, for the approximately 3 million golfers here in the state of California. working behind the scenes to keep that. We call it a Capital Day, and we have over the past couple years really made strides in terms of our relationships with our legislators, our committee people, our staff members in Sacramento to move from, okay, now who are you again? To, okay, great, glad you're here. We want your input and we're going to seek your input. So those are, some of the recent developments. And that is, we're talked this morning about our first Capitol visit, which is going to be probably mid-April when we get together. Nikki, you will be there. Of course, Caitlin will be there. Nikki serves as vice president for the California Alliance for Golf at the moment. Craig and Kevin and Nicole, we team up. Nicole sets the appointments. We break up into teams and we visit. And I'll have a couple of examples of some, what do we talk about when we're there? Have a couple of examples for those in just a few minutes. So that kind of who we are, what we are, and what we're about to do.
Yeah, great. You want to let's talk about the associations that are part of CAG, that make up CAG, right. If you would, please.
Yeah, that's great. We talk about the unified voice, right? And to your point, who is that voice? We have a board of directors with CAG and two bodies, if you will, the board of directors and the legislative committee. There's certainly a lot of intermingling between the two, but we have both the Northern and Southern California Golf Associations, both the Northern and Southern California PGAs, the San Francisco Public Golf Alliance, the Latina Golfers Association, the California Golf Course Owners Association, the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, the California chapter of the Golf Course Superintendents Association, California Turf Grass and Landscape Foundation, doctor's orders, play golf or independent consultant, management companies. Management companies are also on the board and legislative committee of CAG, and as are some suppliers and our researchers. So that is, I think a really great definition of the unified voice. So we have the key players with tremendous expertise and contacts in so many of the areas that we need them to be. It's getting more and more complex day after day here in the state of California.
Yeah, for sure. Let's, you want to talk a little bit about Capitol Day, either recapping what we did last year or maybe what we think some of our plans will be for this year?
Yeah, I absolutely. And again, it's so relationship based. Part of our goal is to maintain and grow those relationships, and it's working. And it's working through foot soldiers. It's working through those meetings here in Northern California at the Capitol. And it's working through the meetings that, Craig and Kevin and yourself and others are attending all the time. City council meetings and governmental meetings, associational meetings to spread the word about CAG, offering some advice to them. So those are really, really important. And I'll give you some examples of, again, what exactly are we doing? And in 20 and 21, there was a bill that was brought forward, which became familiar to us as the Golf Endangerment Act. And that was a proposal out of Southern California to some extent turn public golf courses and municipal golf courses, quote unquote, underutilized into low-income housing situations. So we expressed an opinion on that, but we expressed it very carefully in the sense of not to come out against low-income housing, but to say, can we revisit the metrics that are being used to evaluate whether a facility is underutilized or not? And it was very interesting in that bill because it went away. A new outfit was put on it, and then it was brought back, but we were still able to recognize it, and then ultimately it disappeared. So there are two key points there. One, that's the type of issue that comes up that needs attention. And two, we need to be very careful in saying that something, again, we're not against the ultimate goal of it, but can we look at it a different way? Because what's going to be successful in the long run is collaboration. What's going to be successful in the long run is getting the people on the side and realizing that, we're a viable group. During our visit last year in 2025 to Capitol Day, we were broken up into 3 teams and made our appointments. One of the large issues that we talked about was opposition to California moving to a standard time, permanent standard time, and the loss of our nighttime hours. We spoke about it in terms of it really not accomplishing what the goal might have been, which was pretty unclear, but also the health effect of the lack of being able to play, certainly the financial effect. And as Kevin Breen, stated so eloquently to the senators and the committee people, we're asking probably for more trouble because we have enough folks saying that the mowers at 5 a.m. are really not welcome. There's no need to push them to 4 a.m. To be there. And having worked, at Silverado, having worked at a resort, and reading the comment cards is, I came here to relax and I'm listening to mowers and blowers outside the front door. So again, another great example of the CAG being in there. Implementation of, there was back in AB 1346 about 2 years ago, 2024, a little bit more in terms of banning gas-powered motors for small motors, 25 horsepower or less, and those would be our whackers, and those would be our leaf blowers. And again, the input was to move to a battery, so on and so forth. Again, we're not against anything that might be environmentally positive, but we asked for consideration because the technology was not there at the time. The battery technology was not there at the time to accomplish, the goal. And again, that was well heard and well received. And again, to explain to you also, as we mentioned, water comes up all the time, but both in Northern California and Southern California, we've had water summits these past couple of years, bringing in the water districts, the municipalities on education. And as you know, our superintendents are magicians in terms of what they can create and manifest. Acres and acres have been taken out of play, if you will, and with drought tolerant plantings and less friable area, less mowable area. So the goal is for us as CAG to spread the word that that's what's happening. It's not some random operation that's going on. We had 2 years ago a discussion with Senator Archuleta, who was willing to run a bill for state funding for our PGA Hope programs. And a great example, we're very grateful for that as a veteran himself. Again, it's the types of conversations we're having in Sacramento. The timing was not great, though the ask would have been plus or minus $5 million, which is to us a lot. However, with the state looking at a $30 billion deficit, the timing was certainly not there. So, yeah, to some extent, right. But as you know, it's one thing to ask; it's another thing to ask at the right time.
Right.
So those are some examples, and now we are in a historic event, if you will, because we're actually going to run a bill, which I'm sure Craig will cover during his segment in terms of brokering tee times, which he'll make very clear. So. We have recently also entered into a quote unquote management agreement with the Southern California Association to solidify the administrative base of CAG. This is what's being happening. Who's doing this? Who's got control of that? Again, from my experience, it started with the Northern California Association and then moved down to you guys in Southern California. When Tom was there, and Nikki, and thank you guys for taking care of it. And now books and records, if you will, and the administrative arm will be located in the Southern California Golf Association office. Our board of directors we'd like to think will handle the administrative part of running an organization. So Craig and Kevin and Nicole and all of us can really focus on the issues that are coming up through Sacramento and that come up through municipalities, that come up through counties, and so on that are beneficial and or otherwise requiring us to step in. And so that's a lot. That's a lot, but
Yeah.
that's what we've been up to. And how can everybody help? Well, so I'll ask it for you. There are times when we need a campaign, and here's the issue, ladies and gentlemen. And they hear from us as an organization. That's one thing. It's another thing to hear from the players. Right? It's another thing to hear from the end users, if you will, to send a letter to your congressperson, to send a letter to your local city council, to make a phone call periodically, and that's part of it. The bill that's coming up, we may or may not need that, but we'll certainly reach out. So CAG is moving a way to say moving out of the shadows. That voice, we call ourselves the unified voice. It's getting a little louder. It's getting a little more pervasive. But know that we're there. We're there in protection of the game for us as golf professionals, but more importantly for the players and the 3 million people that are playing golf every year here in California.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. I think it's important for our PGA colleagues, certainly those on the call and those in both sections, that you are part of CAG, through your membership
Right.
with your PGA section. I mean, you are part of CAG. We asked the question, who or what is the PGA? Well, it's the members, right? So I think it's important that our golf professionals, our PGA members understand that they're part of this and their voice is important. I think, you touched on the relationship aspect. I think that's what we are trying to educate our members on, that you don't have to be, an expert on legislation or memorize numbers of bills that are popping up. When we have these meetings with local legislators, it's really about just telling our story, who we are and what we do. And whether they're a golfer or not, a lot of them are not, unfortunately. So it's an opportunity for us to educate them and sort of debunk that stereotype that golf is only for affluent people and is not diverse.
Right.
And as we all know, that couldn't be further from the truth. So when we start talking about what we do through PGA Hope, what we do through junior programming, the impact we have in their community with their constituents and their voters, essentially, it opens their eyes and it makes an impact. So then when we do have to go to them for support of a bill or support against a bill that might adversely affect our industry, they know who we are and they know
Right.
how this could affect. It's easy for them to see something, oh, we just closed this golf course and we can build affordable housing. Sounds great. Well, let me tell you why it's not all that great, or couldn't be, or maybe it's not the best solution, right? So we've seen it in action and excuse me, we'll continue to do so. Mr. Kessler, I see your hand.
If I may, Nikki, just
Yes, 1 second,
one more
Greg.
thing.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, we're very excited. And again, thanks to President Bailey and Caitlin as executive director for the resurrection of the Northern California PGA Government Relations Committee, which the board approved last year. And so we'll be launching soon another way to get involved. And Craig knows this too, to your last comment, when something comes up, a bill or whatever it is, what's really the motivation behind it? What is this really about? So it takes some time to do some digging. We know what's on the surface, but sometimes we need to get deeper and find out exactly what this is. Is it really about what they're saying it is, or is it a political move, so on and so forth? So thanks for the time.
Correct. Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Appreciate it. And thank you for all you're doing as you're serving as president. You're doing an amazing job and keeping us all together, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Mr. Kessler, did you have a comment or question?
No, I
I'll go
did not
into
raise
your
my hand.
update.
You're just so used to me raising my hand that you imagined it.
There was a question, Nikki, in the chat.
Okay, I didn't see. I need to get my glasses on for this one.
We kind of answered it, but I'll let you do it.
Okay. Mr. Casey, thank you. How does one join CAG? How many members or member clubs, associations, institution? What's the number size? I think Lynn pretty much answered that as far as the associations. It's more of a, right now anyway, it's more association based, a coalition, if you will, of golf associations within the state. We are exploring the option of how do we get more golfers involved in CAG. whether that's, similar to a, hey, join the USGA and get a bag tag, or join this foundation. And so we are in the process of discussing, what that might look like in the future. But right now it is a association based membership, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Patrick,
Patrick,
hopefully
thank you for
that
the question.
answered your
One way
question.
to look at it, we're a 20-year-old startup. We're a 20-year-old startup. We've drawn a line in the sand, and now, as Nikki said, we're tackling all of those issues.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Craig, let's transition to you if you want to. Let's talk about this bill. Again, Lynn alluded to, it's not anything that we've been part of before. We, as in CAG, and authoring a bill and going through that whole process. So it is going to be exciting, and love for you to talk about that with the group.
But before I get to the bill, because as of now, there's another week to go, so we thoroughly expect there will be a couple of bills that drop that give us a lot of heartburn that we need to address, but thus far, none. And one bill that was a 2-year bill involving glyphosate, which we had no problem with because it allowed for licensed application, which we would support, died as a 2-year bill just a couple of weeks ago. So before I get to that, I want to tag on a little bit. First, I want to answer Patrick's question a little bit more as well. That, Patrick, I know you're involved with the CMAA. We've had this conversation. There's a seat waiting for that organization. You and I and then the executive director and the president. Well, let's get together and nail that along with Len. Let's nail that down. And Len was correct. We're in this new generation about 6 weeks, with the SCGA being the management arm, basically. And the discussion has begun on how you broaden out, which is also the second part of your question. I'd also like to tag on a little bit before getting to the bill in this legislative session, that 30,000-foot view that Len was talking about as well, because I was thinking back as he was talking. There have been a couple of times, and it's been a lot of years, when I've sort of been confronted with a situation where I had to explain to a group that was probably, well, how shall I say, pretty much clueless as to the importance of advocacy and the relationship between advocacy and the golf industry and the scope of it, and make that case. And I'll just recite both of those examples. One of them was about 13, 14 years ago, after I'd been asked to first put together the public affairs, what was then called governmental affairs functionality at the SCGA. There was a volunteer day, which was mostly also a past president's day. And when the executive director said, I'd like you to stand up and talk about this new function. And I realized I was filled, not today, that room was filled with people who understand the role of advocacy in that organization and in the golf industry. But on that day, I realized that all those past presidents and all those volunteers really had no experience with this. And so I had to figure out a way to explain to them what it was, what its importance was. And I sort of came up with the idea that the SCGA and most of the golf organizations, I'd say the same thing about the PGA sections, they're kind of like big luxury liners. They're exciting, they're sexy. People volunteer, they get involved because they love the game of golf, they love competitions, they love all those kinds of things. At an amateur association, they become rules officials and course raters and all those kinds of things which are exciting and sexy. And that's kind of like the top level of a luxury liner. You spend a lot of money and you're a pampered guest for a period of days as you go from port to port and you play whatever it is, shuffleboard, hit range balls into the ocean and go swimming and enjoy great meals and string quartets or whatever you like. But governmental affairs is like down in the bottom making the boat run. And without that dirty, gritty, moment-to-moment work, and I may use an illusion that it was hot down there, but I think they're probably nuclear powered now, and it's not like shoveling coal into a furnace. That's the notion of it. Some years before that, in my old Public Links Golf Association's days, 5 droughts ago, this is probably 25, 26 years ago, I was at a meeting of delegates of that organization in Ventura County, and those were public golf clubs. And I was going deeply into water issues because they were critical at the time. And one of the delegates is, sometimes happens with these organizations, probably spent a little too much time at the bar before we sat down for the dinner meeting. And he shouted out, "What's this about? I came to hear about golf and golf clubs and everything, and you're talking about water." And at that moment, I thought of something. All I said was to that assembled group, and it was a pretty good sized group, "No water, equals no golf course equals no golf course superintendent equals no GM equals no merchandise, in deference to our first guest, equals no golf club equals no golf association. And I got a standing ovation. And the poor guy slumped down in his seat. And I think that's the best way of explaining what the functionality of CAG. Before I become the usual policy wonk who sounds like a professor in an ivory tower, which is what I sound like way too often, that's really what everything Len said, a little more eloquently and elegantly than I cut to the chase with. That's really it. So even the association of, golf course merchandisers, all of that depends upon a healthy industry. And a healthy industry, it depends upon laws, regulations, media reports, all those kinds of things, so that the fun part of the game, the reason that this audience got into golf, became golf professionals, and others got into amateur golf and so forth, and we all are going to watch the AT&T, and then some people on this broadcast are going to go to the Masters. I'm not one of them this year, and all that sort of stuff. But in order to enjoy all that, the dirty, gritty work has to go forward, and it is interesting work. Now you're lucky that you have volunteers like Len who like it enough that in retirement he's giving his free time to it. And maybe you're lucky that there are people like me who actually think that's the more exciting part of working in golf than actually. Well, I do enjoy going to the Masters. In case anyone still has a ticket, I'm available. Just let that be known on this broadcast with this particular audience. But that's the reason we do what we do. So heading into this legislative session, and I know Nikki told me before the broadcast that there were a few people asking a little bit about Tecolote. So a couple of days ago, I was convinced that I would be telling this group that I thoroughly 100% expected our bill, which is a simple bill that gives cities and counties in this state, under the Business and Professions Code, the ability at their own expense and volition, if it gets to that point, to file a suit in the California Superior Court to kind of bring to the table those who would deal with their tee times and their tee sheets without written agreement or without the consent. And I want to emphasize the consent or the written agreement, because we're all familiar with Golf Now and Supreme Golf, and a lot of those, they have agreements, trust me on that. Those are agreements between consulting, not adults, but businesses, and there's value given and value taken. It's those who do this, and you don't know who they are. And this became quite a flap in Los Angeles a couple of years ago. And I personally worked on some of the policy changes that help mitigate much of it, I also know that governments move slowly, and though if there's money to be made, and to those who at the time questioned how much money could there be in boiler room operations and reselling tee times at low price municipal golf courses, well, I said, I think there's a lot, but I had no evidence of that. And I'll submit as evidence here today that the U.S. Attorney's Office, Central District of California, has brought a criminal action against two brothers in Orange County. Government believes it can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they earned between $700,000 and $1.1 million in a 2-year period, reselling very inexpensive tee times at 17 LA County municipal golf courses. Now, that's perfectly legal. And that there's no recourse that those governments had for that siphoning off. They're being indicted criminally because they didn't declare the income and pay taxes on it, and that is not legal. So all this bill does is give a tool. So when you suggest that maybe you want to see either a cease and desist, or you want to talk about it, or you want to work it out, or at least have a mutually beneficial relationship, as a couple of cities told me, they don't want to just be laughed at that they have no recourse. That's as simple as the bill is. It's very minor. And the reason I don't have 100% confidence that it will drop today or drop within the week left to file bills, which is next Friday, is because, lo and behold, as I've often said to this audience, you never know what's going to happen in this particular game and why it's dirty and gritty work. So the city of San Diego released an audit, and it hit the front page of the San Diego Union Tribune, excoriating their real estate division for how they manage really 7 golf course leaseholds, not managed by the Parks Department, not to be confused with Torrey Pines, Mission Bay, or Balboa, which are part of an enterprise fund that is managed by the city's parks department and by people who are golf professionals. And as the audit pointed out, which the media didn't often highlight, that audit pointed out they've done a really, really good job. And the key recommendation is maybe they should do the job for the other 7 too, whether they contract it out or handle it differently, put it in the enterprise fund and deal with it better. And that management was unfavorably compared to other similarly situated systems like LA County, which is I'm not going to go into the details as to what those comparisons were. So in reality, we worry a little bit because when something like that becomes on the, up front, and of course the city council had a meeting on it. And when you're running a $240 million, envisaged deficit, you have to pound the table and make sure you're working on behalf of the taxpayers and highlight that part of that audit, which just criticized one function, but came up with some easy solutions. By the way, I've been talking about that for years, and maybe this crisis will force them to take a closer look at it. So when there's that much publicity, sometimes something becomes hot and it occurs to us that maybe that might dissuade the authors of the bill to pull back. And if they pull back, we probably have to wait another year. I don't think that's going to happen. We scrambled, like I said, I tried to drop everything and scrambled to explain how really that audit and what it suggested and our bill are really two sides. They're very different, but they're two sides of the same coin. It's about the owners of golf courses, in this case, municipalities, being able to actually control their properties. In the case of those 7 courses that are San Diego municipal courses, a couple of which are not even in the city of San Diego, one of which shocked me because all these years I've played it many times, I thought it was a daily fee golf course. And so that they have but the difference is the city of San Diego has the ability to follow those recommendations in the audit very quickly and upgrade their system. They don't have the ability to deal with some of the tee time brokering that's gone on. And what they need from the state is a very simple provision in the Business and Professions Code that gives them the tool at their own expense and of their own volition. No administrative, and that's strategic because anything that costs money, as Len mentioned with the bill that Bob Archuleta agreed to run, but when the state's how many billions of dollars in deficit, now would not be the time. But we'll hit that one as soon as the state is in surplus. If that should ever happen in our lifetimes again, I don't know if that's going to be the case. So with that sort of outlines the session and explains a little bit to those who are worried about Tecolote. One of the ironies is I looked at that audit report. Tecolote might have been the only facility other than Mission Trails because they just put out an RFP and they've done an award. And when the award when they actually issue the final contract, that will be at market rates with investments with JC Resorts. But the only other one, Tecolote was the only one paying market rate rents. And it was a shock to me as to why that was abruptly canceled. The golf course is closed temporarily to do a big piping project underneath, and it's going to reopen according to the city. It's not going to stay closed. They do need to come to terms, and the reason they sort of abruptly canceled the agreement was they knew this audit was coming out. And so the public, the council has no patience for listening for changing terms because that's been part of their problem over the years. They haven't inspected these courses. They haven't monitored the leases necessarily. They haven't put these things out to proposal when they come up. They've done month to month for lengthy periods of time. And what really concerned me is unlike the enterprise fund of the park golf courses, which reinvest substantial amounts of dollars, particularly most of them are generated at Torrey Pines, into the long term, into the infrastructure, into the new greens, the clubhouses, the parking lots, and so forth. That they made no provision for that. And as the audit points out, over time, if you don't make provision for that, and they point out that places like Los Angeles County, and Long Beach take 10 to 14% of their greens fees dollars and they put them into those funds. So all of that is really good news. And what I hope we've been able to do in the last 48 hours is indicate that is pretty much in alignment with what we're suggesting as well, and it'll move forward. That's a lengthy explanation, which also I hope answers some of the questions that I had originally about Tecolote. I was caught by surprise. When I saw the audit, I'm not surprised. going forward. So I would encourage all of you in San Diego to make sure that City of San Diego understands thoroughly, I'm sure the park department told them this, that you need that even a golf course that's closed for a period of time, there's a certain maintenance that has to be done, or you're putting yourself behind the eight ball when you go to reopen it. And real estate divisions tend not to know these kinds of things, but park departments, and particularly those who are overseeing Torrey Pines, I've played Torrey Pines, a lot of people have. I think they know what they're doing, and I think they can manage this as well. Final thing I'll leave you with is that there's a big sword of Damocles hanging over the entire golf industry in California, Arizona as well. And that's the clock is ticking on the end of this year, in which the 7 states of the Colorado Compact, 4 in the upper basin and 3 in the lower basin, we're in the lower basin, need to come to agreement among themselves, and they're nowhere near that, on how to reallocate the take from the Colorado River, which is going substantially down. The Associated Press is running a story today pointing out that actually at this moment, California is in better shape, but that is separate from the Colorado Basin. That's part of the State Water Project. But the Rocky Mountains, it's the worst snow year ever on record. And that's coming on a lot of bad years. So what was originally allocated 104 years ago at 17 million acre feet per year, which we never used, but it didn't matter. Look at the population of the states in 1922, is down to what, 11 and a half, maybe 12 million acre feet, and it could go below 10 million acre feet very quickly. And before the end of this year, if they don't get some relief in the form of actual snow, which then melts into the water, Lake Mead and Lake Powell may go below the critical level in which everything gets shut off. So, again, if you work in the industry, if you play golf, I would simply remember what I had to say 25 years ago to a group of public golf clubs that were wondering why this nutcase was talking about water at a meeting about golf. And I'll simply say no water in the southern half of the state in particular, equals no golf course, equals no golf professional, no GM, no golf course superintendent, no driving range revenue, no golf club, no golf association, and fewer opportunities moving forward. We have very little ability to affect the outcome of those talks, but it's important that everyone be aware of what's at stake. And it's also important to understand that all efforts to support research, to do creative things in water reduction, to experiment, to err on the side of going with Tiff-Tuff and Zoysia grass and making those investments, those are the things you need to really be focused on. And many of you can do what I've seen some really good creative GMs and superintendents do, gently, slowly, but surely educate, if you're a private club, your boards of directors as to this eventuality. You've got people like me who are going to pound the municipal systems into understanding that. And I think together as an industry recognize that as Len said, golf uses 0.73% of the potable water in the state. That's a number that's lower than it used to be. But make sure it has to be even lower than that in the future. Because as these things become critical, golf is really important to us. But in the fullness of public policy, it's more important to hospitals and schools and homes and businesses. And yes, oil refineries, because everyone puts gas in a car, but not everyone plays golf. And so keep that in mind. That is something that you need to track during the year. I know my next 2 public presentations, both of them in front of golf course superintendents groups. Keep in mind, they're most focused on water and is about the Colorado Basin. Yeah, they're focused on it because they have to manage the water. But if you're a golf professional, you have just as much at stake. You're not managing the water every day, but if you don't have access to water, and speaking of San Diego, those water rates in the next 2 years are going up 31%. And there was a report to the city that they should have raised it 44% to affect full frost recovery. So if nothing else, even if the water is available to you, can you afford it if you don't cut back? So with that, we're about the 10:59 mark. And I hope I answered some questions, and I did want that opportunity to extend what Len said in terms of, and maybe on a future broadcast, I'll go over what I think are about 12 significant things that the California Alliance for Golf has done. Definite things that have gone into law and regulation that have benefited the golf industry. palpably, and all of you out there as well. But I can't do it in the next 42 seconds. So I'm going to simply sign off because I like Nikki to lose the over/under bet every time, and she likes to lose it too. So with that, thanks for having me on. I too was on as the guy at that time who had to work with 10 separate public health departments on COVID regulations, and they all were different, and had to listen to thousands of members say, "Don't you have relationships with health departments?" And I say, why would a golf organization have tight relationships with health departments? Well, in COVID, we had to develop it. And let me say one more thing about San Diego. It was the best of the counties to work with as far as that goes. And that's kind of interesting. So, and LA County was the worst, just for the record. And most of them were in between. And in the end, we muddled through. And as an industry, I think we did really, really well. Thanks for having me. I'm going to shut up now.
Caitlin, save us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Craig.
I don't even know what to say. No, thank you, Craig, and thank you, Len. That was great having you guys back to back. And obviously, we appreciate both your guys' service and passion in this and keeping us up to date. Looking forward to the Capitol Day here in a couple months with you guys. So that's it for today. If you called in this morning, just make sure you let your section office know if you were on the telephone. Otherwise, we'll be reporting PDRs here in the next week or so. And we will be back together on March 13th for our next chat. We don't have a speaker just yet, but stay tuned. Thank you all for being here. Just a quick plug on NorCal as well. We have our player teacher forum coming up on February 23rd and 24th at Lake Merced. It's a 2-day conference featuring Parker McLaughlin. He's the short game chef. If you've heard of him, he's pretty popular right now in the teaching space. So if you have the time, you can sign up on that for another week or so. Nikki, any final thoughts?
I'm good. Enjoy your Friday and your weekend, and we'll see you in a month.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks,
Thanks
Len.
all. Yeah. See ya.